Is Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer? My guest, Allen Strk, joins me to talk about his future, potentially in Canton, as well as in the broadcast booth, as well as his past, here on today's Locked On Falcons.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, and, of course, the very humble host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, who's going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And we thank each and every one of you that continues to make this illustrious podcast your first listen throughout this downtime in the summer. Make sure you follow in the footsteps of our everydayer. Shout out to them who subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode is all about Matt Ryan, right? You know, we can take a time to look back at the Falcons' most recent quarterback, as you know, the next 6 months will be all about potentially the future of the Falcons. And I am joined by, of course, Allen Strk, and we are going to talk all about Matt Ryan, his Hall of Fame chances, his, what he brings to the table as a broadcaster, as well as remember some of the good times for Matt Ryan in Atlanta. So that is what's in store for you on today's episode. Let's jump right into it with my guest, Allen Strk. All right, everyone, you are back with another illustrious guest. He is none other than Allen Strk, former co-host of the Locked On Falcons podcast, former co-host of the Falcon Fans podcast, contributor at the Falcoholic, the SB Nation website for the Atlanta Falcons, and of course, the guy that runs the entire Odyssey ship. Allen, welcome back to Locked On Falcons.
Thank you for the hell of an intro.
So we are at that time of the year where, not a whole lot going on. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of take a look back. We've done that a couple of times now, Allen, over this period of time during the summer with, the historic Falcons historian shootout from several years ago. There's been some rumors that, that might be coming back potentially next summer or something like that. We'll see. But we like to look back at this time of year because, there's not a whole lot going on. And I figured, why not look back at, arguably the greatest Falcon ever, and that is, of course, Matt Ryan. And right off the bat, Allen, let's jump into the deep end. Do you think Matt Ryan deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I don't. I think as much as I appreciate longevity and being at the top of your position, I just think there's something lacking with Matt Ryan's resume. And of course, we could talk about the Super Bowl, but I'm talking about the truly elite years. Because I just think with the Hall of Fame, we got to start considering like the cream of the crop, the premium. Like, I love longevity as much as the next person. Someone that's consistently great. But rewarding someone like Matt Ryan's kind of like rewarding like Frank Gore. Like, I call that like the Hall of Very Good. It's just, I look at Matt Ryan, besides 2012 and 2016, can we really pinpoint a season where he was a top 3 quarterback? I have my doubts. I think he's had several seasons as a top 10, but when you look at the resume and of course the lack of a Super Bowl, and I think recency bias will also play an effect. I just think how the Colts season, unfortunately, was a complete debacle. That won't be forgotten. So I think all those things adding up, and just the Falcons kind of after 2017 not being the playoffs, there's enough things that are going to damage his resume, as great of a career he's had, because there's no denying Matt Ryan for at least half, if not 60% of his career, was a top 10 quarterback. But I don't think top 10 consistently should get you in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I pretty consistently thought Matt Ryan as like the 8th best quarterback in the NFL for most of his career, rather than that sort of top 3, top 5 type of guy. And there is something to be said for being that player for as long as Matt Ryan was, as you said, longevity. It is notable to me that when you look at websites like Pro Football Reference, who have their little Hall of Fame monitor thing that, I don't know what exactly goes into it. Matt Ryan hits the threshold right around what the average Hall of Fame quarterback's career on whatever they calculate that. And it's right around, it's actually slightly better than Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers in that regard. And, my stance with Matt Ryan is like, I should have a horse in the race, but I don't really have a horse in the race in terms of whether he should get in. I've always long thought that he probably would get in. And a lot of that was due to feeling like he had as good, if not a better career than other quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame, players like Troy Aikman and Kurt Warner, Warren Moon, although I think Warren Moon's in for historical significance because of, basically being the first great black quarterback in the
You think
NFL.
he's had a better career than Kurt Warner? Ooh, I know Kurt Warner's career was a roller coaster, but Kurt Warner's peak. Ooh.
I mean, Kurt Warner was really good for like 4 years, and then was really mediocre for like.
But those 4 years. We're talking about Super Bowls and.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. But I just feel like as an overall body of work, Matt Ryan, Kurt Warner was a little rough for like half of his career. And I don't know if, the Colts season and maybe like one or two others in Matt Ryan's career, like he was never as rough as that. So for that reason, like I felt like Matt Ryan had a good chance to get in, but I kind of agree with you in this sense of like the last couple of years in Atlanta and this final year with Indianapolis is going to leave a really bad taste in people's mouths with Matt Ryan. And I already thought he would, if and when he becomes eligible, which we would assume if he's done playing as of today will be 5 years from now. I already thought he was going to have to wait several years regardless of how the rest of his career played out. But now it does feel like it's going to be put further on the back burner in his career. So ultimately, I don't know the answer, but before, like, if you had asked me like 3 years ago, I would have said like, yeah, there's like a 70% chance that Matt Ryan's in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, it's probably at best a coin toss.
Yeah. And I think the Falcons kind of did disservice to him. Like, I actually blame the Falcons more than Matt Ryan, the player himself, for the reason why he probably won't be in the Hall of Fame, because the Falcons absolutely, botched their roster building, just not being competitive. Like, they were out of the playoff race several years by October, November. But you look at seasons like I think 2017 and 2021, Matt Ryan kind of, the numbers will indicate it, but I thought he played better than it was the box score suggested. Like 2021, quietly. But you look at those games against like Miami and New Orleans, those victories. Wow, these are just flawless performances. But we didn't get enough of that, and it's just the fact that the Falcons, They look at what your team has done. It's unfortunate. I think the Hall of Fame very much so is a flawed process. Like, I'll tell you right now, I would 100% put Matt Ryan before Eli Manning, but I unfortunately think Eli Manning will get it, even though I feel like Eli Manning has absolutely zero business being in the Hall of Fame. Just does not have the consistency whatsoever. But I just think they look at your team background, and that's why a person like Eli Manning will probably get in, while the likes of Matt Ryan and probably Phillip Rivers will be cast aside, even though they've absolutely had better careers than Eli Manning.
Yeah. Normally I'm not a person that, feels like dying on a hill when it comes to the Hall of Fame debates and conversations or whatever. But, if Eli gets into the Hall of Fame, that is going to be one hill I am definitely going to die on, because he is very undeserving of it. And I liked Eli for a large portion of his career, but when it got to the point where it's like he won his first Super Bowl or second, whenever it was, I can't remember which Super Bowl it was that he won. And everybody, you started, you always get the ridiculous articles after the Super Bowl, but it's like, is Eli the best Manning quarterback in his family? I'm like, come on, guys. Like, we don't have to do this. We really don't have to do this every single time. Like,
oh, man.
It's like the whole, Julian Edelman, is he a Hall of Famer stuff? And it's like, come on, man. Like, we don't have to do this. Like, he balled out in January, but that is not a Hall of Fame career. Yeah. But
what's unfortunate? After that Eli second Super Bowl, we had Joe Flacco elite, like what, a year or two later?
Yeah.
Like, so it was a rough stretch where we're just like, wow, we really have to put up with mediocre quarterback play, and then all of a sudden 3 really good games in the playoffs, and now the whole consensus opinion changed. Like, hey, we can look at Nick Foles as well, unfortunately, and the Falcons were a victim of that. Even though, like, we watched that game, I was there live, I covered it, and Nick Foles was abysmal that game, but it's just you have 2 or 3 of those games just put you over the top on the biggest stage, and that's why you see the likes of Eli and Flacco. And look what happened with Nick Foles, Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's just we know how much national, mainstream games are gonna decide what opinions like. And unfortunately for Matt Ryan, he had some rough ones. Like we're talking about later in his career, those Thanksgiving games, unfortunately, that will be glued in people's minds because it was really the only time the Falcons were on primetime.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It is definitely unfortunate. So sorry to disappoint all the listeners, all the viewers with us not coming on here and saying what you want us to say, which is absolutely Matt Ryan is 100% a Hall of Famer. Anybody who says otherwise is crazy person. Unfortunately, Alan and I have to be real with you and, color us skeptical, as I guess is the best way to put it. But
we look forward to a Ring of Honor. That's what we're looking forward to.
Absolutely. Very deserving. And certainly, no bones about him having the best career of any Falcon player and the greatest draft pick of all time, all that stuff and more. All those accolades are well deserved, but whether or not he will be recognized to be part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame remains to be seen. I'm still hopeful, but we'll just sort of have to see how that goes. But we'll continue this retrospective about Matt Ryan and maybe say some more positive things about Matt Ryan as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. But first, guys, I want to tell you about LinkedIn. Just like the Atlanta Falcons, you may be a small business owner or a hiring manager, and you know that your success in 2023 all depends on hiring the right team members that you surround yourself with. And that's why you should check out LinkedIn Jobs, where you can quickly attract and hire qualified candidates by matching with people who have the skills, values, and experience to help you achieve your goals. If you think of it like a football team and you're trying to make the playoffs, you'd like to find the right quarterback or the right playmakers to help you achieve that goal. So put your job posts for free in front of over 800 million member profiles to find the most qualified candidates. With LinkedIn Jobs, it's easy to screen and rate applicants based on their job qualifications, all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So continuing this conversation here with Allen Strk of the Falcoholic and so many other things. Alan, since we were so quote unquote negative about Matt Ryan's Hall of Fame chances to start the show, let's talk about some positive things. So we will definitely not be talking about his time in Indianapolis. So let's rewind the clock to some good times when Matt Ryan was going strong and playing at MVP levels. And I think we have to kind of go back to 2018, although as you mentioned, we did get some glimpses of the good Matt Ryan in 2021 and some of the other recent seasons. But that last year, I think where it really looked like Matt Ryan was one of the best quarterbacks in the league was probably 2018. Would you think that's fair?
Yeah, I would say so. I just want to mention to listeners that if you want to hear more Matt Ryan praise, you go listen to the 180 episodes we've done over the past years.
That is true.
Because I was always definitely very complimentary of Ryan. I know we love Matt Ryan. It's just we got to assess what the Hall of Fame is like. But 2018, wow, that was like such a roller coaster season. But I just feel like when it came to the early stages, and unfortunately, once again, we got to talk about Matt Ryan on primetime, that Eagles game. Just look, the Eagles, anytime Matt Ryan played the Eagles, unless it was throwing to Byron Maxwell, his direction with Julio, it just did not end well. Like that Eagles, that first game was rough. I covered a game and it was a rainstorm. It was like 93 degrees, and boy, he took a beating. But I would say that from Carolina, New Orleans, Cincinnati, that 3-game stretch where basically the defense couldn't stop anyone, like you won't see better quarterback play. Like, man, he carried offense. This is a time when Falcons, the jokes were, they can't score in the red zone. And then Matt Ryan proceeded to score in the red zone every single time they got in the red zone those 3 games. And I think that was so special from that 2018 season. It's just when this odds were really stacked against them. Injuries completely decimated defense, players not stepping up. Matt Ryan took the initiative. And let's not forget the running game was kind of an afterthought. This was also the first year First year, the return of Dirk Cutter, not the first year with Dirk Cutter. Let's specify that.
No, Dirk Cutter was 2018 was still Sark.
Wow. All right. Well, shame on me.
Look, there will definitely not be any positive things said about Dirk Cutter on this podcast. I guarantee.
But yeah, I remember Sark was getting his way. Yeah, which is crazy. I should remember. Yeah. So no. Yeah, nothing with Dirk Cutter.
I know you weren't the biggest fan of Sark, so you pushed that
No,
out
I was.
of your memory.
Yeah, I'm not. Definitely not. But I will say, I think what we look back on 2018 though was the fact that against all odds, Matt Ryan thought, especially the first half of the season, played at an extremely high level and kept the Falcons afloat during what could have been a very dark time for the franchise.
Yeah, I agree with that. 2018 also was Mohamed Sanu's best season in Atlanta. So,
oh my God, now you're complimenting Mohamed Sanu.
Like,
what is going to
happen? We're gotta go all the way in the other direction, right? Yeah, I think 2018. I think he balled out that year. 2017, that first year under Sark, it felt like he played well. The offense and the structure around him was not nearly as good as it needed to be in order to get the most out of Matt Ryan. Obviously, we saw in 2016 what the most out of Matt Ryan looks like with that MVP season. I'm curious, when you look back at that MVP season, and I know I certainly have been someone that has fallen into this trap far too often, is that I tend to give maybe Kyle Shanahan too much credit for Matt Ryan's MVP performance. I'm just curious, now that we have many years of hindsight to look back at it, where do you kind of fall on that balance between how much of it was Kyle Shanahan, how much of it was Matt Ryan himself?
There's no denying Kyle Shanahan's influence, the way he was scheming up plays. But you look at some of Matt Ryan's throws from that year. The one against Carolina on Christmas Eve, I think it was to Josh Perkins, of all people. Let's talk about threading the needle. Oof. That was just one of those moments. And I just feel like Matt Ryan had so much command in the pocket that season. He felt comfortable finally turning his back on play action because obviously with Kyle Shanahan's offense, you're running a lot of play action. But there was just signature moments like the touchdown against Green Bay in the regular season to Taylor Gabriel. That was like Taylor Gabriel's first of many shining moments where I remember there was jokes about Matt Ryan's arm strength going into the season because of how bad 2015 was and the infamous clip during the preseason of Kyle Shanahan intercepting Matt Ryan. So there was always jokes about his arm strength. But Matt Ryan, I don't know what the numbers were off the top of my head, but if I'm not mistaken, he was definitely one of the most accurate deep throwers that season. And he just seemed completely dialed in. And you just look at some of those moments. And even the playoffs against Seattle, which was a very intimidating environment. I know they're at home, but this was still the Legion of Boom. And this was defense that was coming after him. And I think the way Matt Ryan, to me, always was kind of hot and cold when it came to handling pressure. But I would say from like 2016 to 2018, he just seemed most comfortable handling pressure. And I think he stepped up when it came to just being an athlete. And you saw that at the start of 2016. So I would say the command in the pocket, but also navigating through pressure were like the biggest things for me when it came to watching Matt Ryan in 2016.
Yeah, I think command is the right word with Matt Ryan because you saw like when, I think this was a knock on Matt Ryan early in his career because I remember Doug Farrar and Greg Cosell talking about this on the podcast way back in the day, like from like 2013 and whatever, where they were critical of Matt Ryan's ability to kind of thrive when things got muddy, when the pocket got muddy and whatnot. And you just mentioned sort of some of his issues struggling handling pressure, but that was something that he got better at, that ability to be functional and capable off structure and create on his own, got better as he aged. And I think some of that was owed to, it had to, because he spent so many of those previous years under fire, from the pressure. And it was just like, you're kind of a sitting duck, but to the command point, like it did feel like that 2016 season, in addition to all the great play calling that Kyle Shanahan did and all the weapons that he had, but like that was the year where Matt Ryan truly commanded the offense, where it was just like he figured it out. Like that's what the 2015 issues were just like, I don't really know what this offense is, because it's really like the first time he had to learn a brand new offense since his rookie season, because when Dirk Cutter came in the first time, he just kind of just like took the malarkey offense and the verbiage and just basically was like, okay, well, cut this stuff out and we'll focus on this stuff and we'll throw in the 4 verticals play concept and then like that's it, right?
A lot more screens. God mentioned that. There's a way more screens compared to.
Yeah, and so like it felt like that first year in 2015 that was very up and down, and then once in 2016 he had that command, and unfortunately it felt like the subsequent years after that he still had the command of the offense, but the structure wasn't quite there because of the play calling. And so like that to me is what really stands out when I go back and look at the 2016 stuff, where it was just like this was Matt Ryan at his peak, just feeling it, just like kind of a heat check type of sort of situation in a lot of those games throughout that season.
Yeah, and I look at the 2 Seattle games, the away game against Denver, like he was going to go against some of the top defenses in the league, and it just the pressure was coming. Like I remember we were previewing those games, like, oh, this is gonna be a daunting matchup. Like how's he gonna handle this? And I do think that's a very fair critique. Early in his career, Matt Ryan did struggle under pressure, particularly on the road. Like you look at some of those games against Tampa Bay and even or those Saints defenses back in, what was it, 09, 10, 11. So I think that was honest critique. But it's just, of course, the infrastructure of the offense. But I do think Matt Ryan really improved not just his pocket presence, but as an athlete. Like there was some weird transformation. And I know he's done a lot of off-season work, but I'm blanking on the person. But he worked with someone after I'm not going to call it a train wreck, but let's just say very disappointing 2015 season. He clearly had a point to prove. And I just thought, you look at some of the moments, and the great Dave Cho, he had jokes for him every time, but like those scrambles, like there was this times he would just pick up a key, it would be 3rd and 11, get 12, 13 yards, and he just showed the confidence there, because I think he was a bit too dependent. Like he's very robotic at times, like earlier in his career. And I think as he got older, he's like, all right, I'm going to take more command of the offense, and salute to him for it, because he ultimately elevated the team. I know we could talk about certain skill position players, but none of their success happens without Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And speaking of elevation, I guess we'll try this as a segue. Let's continue the conversation talking about whether Matt Ryan's going to elevate his teammates on the television screen as we wrap up today's episode with Matt Ryan moving into the broadcast booth. So we'll continue that conversation here with Allen Strk. But before we get there, guys, I do want to shout out the everydayers that are tuning in each and every day that make this illustrious podcast their first listen each and every day. Of course, follow in their footsteps by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, guys, wrapping up today's episode, this retrospective, and obviously, 20 to 30 minutes of a podcast does not do Matt Ryan the full justice that his career deserves. So this will probably not be the last time Matt Ryan gets his flowers on this podcast, but we might have to save it for that day or that week or whenever it is when he's, inducted into the Ring of Honor. And, he's now broadcasting. He's made it known that he is not retired, that, his phone number is still, listed. I don't know how that analogy works. I'm old. I was like,
he's got his LinkedIn profile. He doesn't need to work out with questionable people like Carson Wentz. Matt Ryan, his profile's out there. He's going to be on TV. His skin's going to be glistening. This man's going to make great donations like he always is, giving back to the community, particularly in Atlanta. I think he was at a Hawks game not too long ago. Matt Ryan, this is a man of integrity. So if a team gets desperate, what better way to represent your franchise and maybe get a couple of wins? It's not Matt Ryan.
Well, if history says anything, the 49ers by week 8 will be down to their 3rd string quarterback. So I think,
oh please,
we might get that phone call from Kyle Shanahan. Baby, come back.
Matt Ryan, 350 yards, 280 of them are pure yak, because the 49ers just have a superhero offense.
But, when it comes to Matt Ryan on TV, I know you are a big fan of D'Angelo Hall on TV. You were one of the biggest proponents of D'Angelo Hall. On the D'Angelo Hall scale, how do you think Matt Ryan will be as far as broadcasting goes.
The thing is, I haven't seen much D'Angelo Hall on TV recently.
Yeah,
I feel like he's kind of faded a bit. I hear him on the 106.7 The Fan in Washington D.C. So he's still got a strong presence in D.C. A lot of whatever reason, I guess because he's played there longer. I wonder how many years did he play in Washington, but Washington seems to love him a lot more in Atlanta.
I feel like he played like 7 years in Washington or something like that.
Okay,
he played a good little while there.
Okay, that's significantly more than Atlanta. Okay, my apologies.
He played what 4 years in Atlanta, half a year in Oakland.
Half a year. Listen, man, shame on Rob Ryan. That's all I'm gonna say, man. That wasn't D'Angelo Hall's fault, man. Shame on Eddie Royal. Things happen in life, but on the D'Angelo Hall scale, that's a weird scale to go on. Like
I just want to throw you off, man.
I was thinking like Ryan Clark or Marcus Spears. People we see daily, or even like a Steve
anytime
Smith.
I talk to you, got to talk about D Hall at some point.
All right. Look, the brand's got to stay strong. But no, I think Matt Ryan would be great on TV. I know people could be a little pessimistic because if you remember his post-game press conferences, they were rather straightforward and kind of you wouldn't get too much noteworthy comments from it. There wasn't so much insight. But I think now Matt Ryan's in a different position in his life, and I think he's opportunity to not just provide analysis, but and I'm not saying he has to be critical, but at least he give you like behind the scenes look and just kind of show what the modern day offense is. I think Matt Ryan just playing recently could give an idea to a lot of broadcasters and analysts who, let's be frank, they've been out of the game for over a decade and they can be about outdated with their analysis. Like, you see it, especially with CBS and Fox, like a lot of their guys, they are in the league 10, 15 years. So having someone like Matt Ryan there, who's just literally right in the league, and I think someone that has a pulse on what's going on and how to run some of these offensive schemes could be a really good thing. So he doesn't need to be bashful because, look, Matt Ryan, he's his own person, and he's going to be a little quirky, but I think he's in a more relaxed position where I think he's going to provide more than his post-game press conferences. Because I totally agree. Like, I've been to some of them, and, yeah, those press conferences were pretty vanilla. I think Matt Ryan, in the position that he's in now, I think he's going to give the audience a lot to think about.
I got you. My only concern with Matt Ryan on TV is, will he be willing to say the things that he wants to say because he doesn't want to burn any bridges in the event that someone gives him that phone call,
But I feel like he always has a good way of words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he likes to drop an F-bomb here and there, but he's not going to do it on CBS.
only in to the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we got to take into account how aware Matt Ryan is. Like, this man knows how to give daps, give handshakes. Let's not forget that glorious moment. You see Nate Burleson, he dap up, and then Boomer, within 2 seconds, proper transition to a firm handshake. So Matt Ryan's TV awareness is already on a super high level.
Hey, when Chris Jenkins and Cam Jordan are chasing you for life, you got to have your head on a swivel, All
right, hold on. That's 2 decades we're talking about here, man. And oh my God, we went from Christian. I thought you were gonna say like Gerald McCoy.
Look, I couldn't think of anybody. Cam Jordan was the first name that popped in my head. It was Chris Jenkins, and I was like, wait, where am I going with this? And then Cam Jordan. So yeah, he just that pocket awareness is definitely key. So that's what you're talking about there. But yeah, I wish Matt Ryan the best. It's obviously unfortunate things did not end well here in Atlanta, and obviously did not end well here or there in Indianapolis. And I would like to see him get some redemption at some point. Maybe that is, getting that gold jacket in, a couple of years from now. Maybe that's the redemption that he gets. We certainly
Are you excited for him on CBS though? Like you think?
Yeah, I mean,
because I think he'll do very well. I think he's born for this.
I mean, sure. I don't really watch the pregame shows, so it's just like,
But you see the clips. The clips will.
Yeah,
come up.
I mean, I'll pay attention. I'll pay more attention to it this year because he's on it than I would in the past. But usually, 12 o'clock on Sundays, I'm just like chilling.
I agree with that. But I think in certain moments, whether it be, I don't know, I think it was good for him to be on the playoff coverage. That was cool because I think the playoffs, you get longer coverage and there's not too much going on. But I agree, 12 o'clock on a Sunday, there's a lot going on. It's hard. But I think there will be clips here and there that'll pop up 3-4 minutes on Twitter where we're like, oh, I want to check this out, because they might talk about a serious matter, or they might talk about, why is Mike McDaniel's offense thriving, or hey, why is Arthur Smith's offense booming? Like, you're going to check it out if Matt Ryan's talking about it. So, I look forward to it. I do think, even though they're a bit, they got a couple older guys there, but I do think CBS, they're building something pretty nice with him and Burleson. I'm glad they're starting to branch out to recent players. Even though I feel like Burleson's been gone for a bit, but he just feels youthful to me. Like, I feel like Burleson always really has the pulse on what's going on.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. CBS is definitely ahead of curve compared to Fox. I mean, it's like, can we get some non-boomers on Fox's pregame coverage at some point? Strahan's doing the best he can, but like at a certain point,
I consider Strahan old now.
I mean, he is old, but compared to
you played 08, like you retired in 08.
I mean, compared to Bradshaw and Howie Long and those guys, Strahan is a young man compared to those guys. So,
can I make a suggestion for CBS? You know what they should do? Hire Tony Gonzalez. Oh, you just bring it all together.
He was on CBS, wasn't he?
Yeah, I feel like Tony Gonzalez is on every network. I think he's just doing his thing. He might end up on NBC next. Like, literally, because he's been on Fox.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's done some stuff on NFL Network, so.
Yeah. I want to see Tony in more movies.
Okay. That's a hell of a turn.
That's always been my thought on Tony. Like, I think he could act, Okay. Nnamdi Asomugha has a movie coming out or something like that. I don't know. So, more movies. Tony, if you're watching, more movies. Okay. Anyway, Alan, let the people know what's going on in your world, where they can find your stuff as we duck out of here.
Allen Strk, that's ALLENSTRK. I don't know. It's the type of year or time of the year, where you kind of just experimenting with content. I'm in that mode right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do until training camp starts. So nothing really pressing at the moment that I could really promote, but I'm sure come July, there's going to be some fun stuff coming from the Falcoholic.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of experimenting here on the Locked On Falcons podcast, we got a lot of NFC South content coming the rest of the way this week, guys. So make sure you continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.